Hi, I'd like to give a quick tour of Service Catalyst's newest custom solution, the Application Access Tracker. So as you can see, there's a new application in when you install our update set, which gives you the application access application and modules. Before I show the full functionality, I just want to talk about some of the underlying tables that this functionality relies on. And as part of going live with this functionality, you would have to set up this referential data so that it can be used in the transactional processes of requesting and revoking application access. So the first is an out-of-box table in the CMDB, just the application table. Nothing too special here. You have your applications, which has a set of metadata and will be hooked into your CMDB versus CI relationships as it does out of box. The difference here is that we have a related list of application roles. So as an application owner, you can come in and define which roles are available in your application. So here I'm looking at the Clarity application, a project management application owned by IT. It's supported by the Consumer Service Support Group. And right now we have two roles. As the Clarity application owner, maybe I want to define a new role that is available as part of my application. As of right now, we have reporter and global user. So let's go ahead and define that new role just by hitting the new button. Here we defined what we would like to call this role, or what in the Clarity application we do call this role. So maybe we call this role employee in the Clarity application. But really what that equates to is a fulfiller role, or an approver role, or a customer role. We'll say fulfiller right now. And we can see referentially that usually fulfillers in a normalized fashion have create, read, and write ability. Here we can select that, or we can be different than our normalized role, but this normalization gives us a higher level of reporting and metrics to see what kind of roles we are using within that application. So I'm going to go ahead and save that record. And we can see that since we've just created this in the Clarity application, for the role of employee, we currently do not have any users with that application access. One note about that normalized role name, that's just also driven by a data table. So if we come into our administration portion, we can see the normalized role names and kind of what the most typical roles are and what abilities they have. Obviously, this may be different by different organizations, and these can be edited or deleted or created. Let's go ahead and use that new application and request some application access. So now, just using the standard service catalog, we just have direct links into these catalog items. However, if you have a larger service request catalog, these can easily be added to whatever categories you may or may not be using and formatted to follow whatever standard template you may or may not be using. We don't have any SLAs defined for these catalog items, although obviously you can easily do so. So here we're requesting application access. We're going to figure that we're going to do that we're requesting that application access to the person that's logged in, which in this case is Ben, although we can always overwrite that. Now we're going to have a simple reference to all of the active applications in the system. Let's choose Clarity for this and try and find our new application. And we're going to say, what role would you like to provision this user? So again, this is going to be a filtered list of all the available roles for the application Clarity. In this case, why don't we choose that new employee role, which is right there. So we're asking for Ben to get access to Clarity with the employee role. When I order now, we're going to kick off a simple request item with a fulfillment workflow. And I want to take just a second to take a look at that fulfillment workflow. So we've kept things very simple. We haven't touched the item table out of box at all here, but I'm just going to take a look and see what the workflow is doing behind the scenes. So out of box with our solution, we have one catalog task that is assigned to the application's primary support group or support group. And you'll see that once that task has closed to provision the application access, we run a script and we give that user a new role. And I'll show you what that looks like in the data table. So very simple workflow. Obviously, in different organizations, there may be much more complexity in provisioning roles. There could be approvals, there could be multiple tasks that need to happen, but we've just given you a simple baseline with the end result always being this creation of that relationship of that user to the role that we would like to give them. So flipping back over here, let's just walk through that. We can see we have one catalog task assigned to consumer service support. That's provision employee, which is the name of the role for Ben Ramsire on Clarity, which is the name of the application. So here I'm just going to go into my task. I'm going to assign it to somebody in that group, and there's nobody in that group. I'm going to skip through this real quick, and through the magic of being a ServiceNow admin, I'm going to close and complete this task. Obviously, in the real world, that would be assigned to somebody. We'll get a little info message saying new application access associated with a user. And if I flip back over to my workflow, we should see that this is successfully run. The item itself is complete, and if I go now to users with application access, I should see a full list of users. I'm going to just sort it by number so we see the latest first. We should see a new association of Ben to Clarity, and now we see that Ben has, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong record. Ben has been associated with the new employee role in Clarity. Additionally, as that individual user, I can always click on my roles and see what roles I have. So now, me as the user, we have a record that I have an association with the employee role in the Clarity application. Looking at that from a more global perspective, we can click on the role allocation overview. And this is a simple interactive dashboard that gives us a look at all the various roles and what types of access each application has. So you'll see we have an application picker right here at the top. As of right now, I'm looking across all the applications in my portfolio, but I can filter this down. So, I see that in total, we have 8 users with access, over 11 roles, and we have the varying counts of the types of access those people have to all those applications. If I'm worried about a specific one, for example, Clarity, the one that we were just using as a demo, I can click on Clarity and I can now see that we have 3 users with access to Clarity over 3 total roles. It looks like everyone's got access to do it, just about everything, which may be a red flag to my GRC people that we don't want everybody to have admin level access. We can see some kind of basic information, how many roles we've given over time, where that roles, how those roles are allocated over different people, and making sure we don't have anybody who's left the company or is inactive with a current license. Maybe we have some software licenses that we can re-provision to other people and not waste that money. Okay, so Ben has his access to Clarity. He's doing a great job as an employee, but unfortunately we have to cut his access because he's a compliance concern because we have all this, too many people have access. Again, we kind of have the inverse here. So we have revoking application access. We ask whose application access you would like to revoke. In this case, I'm going to select Ben. And we have a slight branch here, which is basically the question of, would you like to only revoke a specific piece of that person's access? So I would only like to revoke just that Clarity role I just gave Ben, or maybe he's leaving the company and we need to revoke all his access across all applications. Let's go down the more specific path where I specify the specific application access I'd like to revoke, in which case I get a pop-up that is asking me which specific role do I want to revoke. In this case, I'm going to select Ben's Clarity access as an employee, but I'll leave him. Actually, he's okay as an employee, but let's remove him as a global user so he doesn't have that administration role anymore. Just like before, I'm going to order now. And again, we've kicked off a slightly different workflow. A note here, obviously, we would want to talk about some security restraints as to who is allowed to do what in the system. I'm just playing the admin role right now, but all of this can be locked down to specific users or specific conditional logic. Additionally, we can always add approvals here so we're not auto-revoking any access whatsoever. So you'll see, here's my item I just created. We've revoked, we've got a task to consumer service support, again, that primary support group of the application, telling us to revoke the global user role for Ben Ramsire on Clarity. Just taking a look behind the scenes at the workflow real quick again. We have a simple branching workflow. A big if, that's that big branch. So if we were revoking all of Ben's access, we would have come on this path where we're looking at all of the roles across all of the applications he has and revoking all at once. But here we're only specifying one role to revoke, and we'll see when this task closes that that application role will be set to false. So we still have the tracking of that role and that Ben used to have the role, but we're just moving that to active equals false. If I come back into my item, I'm going to, again, kind of skirt the system and just close our task real quick for the sake of expediency. And we'll close out that request item. We now see that it's closed complete. If we hop back over to the workflow, we should see a bunch of blue boxes as we run through. And at this case, at this point, if I click on my roles, I should only have 2 roles left, and I do, because I have just revoked my access as the global user in Clarity. I still have my employee access, but I don't have that global user. Should I need to see it, I can always clear out that active is true. And you can see that Ben has a bunch of older false records that are no longer valid that have been revoked over time. Again, as the application owner or as someone who's worried about licensing, I can always come back here and see updated counts of these roles in my various applications in the system. So that's a very simple demonstration of Service Catalyst's new application access solution in ServiceNow. Provides a very easy table structure and way to monitor how many people are using what, how many people have what type of privilege in all of your applications in the system. It requires a little bit of data setup up front, but once you have it up and running, you'll have accurate counts going forward. The next logical evolution of this tool would obviously be to layer on GRC. Maybe you have some rules or some governance and compliance around your applications, especially if they have sensitive data living inside them, to make sure that only a certain level or a certain number of people have read or write or delete access to those applications. And this provides an easy underlying data table to run those compliance rules against to make sure everything is by the letter of the law. So thanks and have a great afternoon.